I have become friends with my boss at work, and I just found out she might be my biological mother, but I don't know if I still want her in my life anymore. Please send help. I always knew I was adopted out of foster care. My parents couldn't have biological kids, so they signed up for foster, and I, along with my sister Wendy, were both foster fails. Yes, like with cats. I sometimes joke about that with my mom because we also had 3 cats growing up for the same reason. I'm athletic and have many hobbies: rock climbing, hiking, martial arts, and lifting weights a fair bit. Wendy and my parents do not share my interests, but we do all like reading, so we bonded over that. I still remember being 4, Wendy being 9, and us both in bed with Mom as she read from Watership Down or Shardik. I'm not saying we weren't a weird family, but to this day, I love them all. They're my tribe, and if we're weird, at least we're weird together. Life was what you might expect from a former foster kid: ups and downs. I went to the local state university with my parents' help just like Wendy did. I played lacrosse and met Andrew, who became my best friend, and eventually, I got a job at a bank, mostly just filing and doing paperwork for people with titles like senior analyst. I won't say it's my dream job, but it pays pretty decently, and Andrew and I have been considering moving in together. Last year, after I'd worked there for 3 months, Bess came to work at the same building as me. She was head of the division and oversaw investment accounts and trusts. I didn't meet her right away until I was assigned a very boring but necessary job to collect all the paperwork we had on accounts from before our current bank overlord absorbed whatever bank was here before. She was surprisingly cool, and we bonded over stuff like hiking and rock climbing, and soon I was one of her favorite minions. I'm not saying we were best buds, but we got along. Her husband Dave died last year, of cancer, and while she was on leave, I used to stop by her place with little things: coffee, some shopping for necessities, or just to hang out and check up on her. She has a family, a mom, and a dad. They're not super close, but she's been mending fences with them, and since Dave passed, they've been visiting her, too. I even ran into them once or twice, and her mom acted kind of weird when we met, asking me like 6 times if we'd met before. I remember telling Andrew, and he said, "Well, Janie, you're over 6 feet and built like a really hot dump truck, so maybe you just stand out," which is why I love him. Yes, I love being called a hot dump truck. Things were a little different when she returned to work 6 months ago. Not in a bad way, just I was more comfortable with her and more willing to talk about my life and listen to her talk about hers. She became a mentor. She knows I don't love the job and don't want to go back for a business degree or economics or what have you, but she appreciates how I don't do sloppy work. As I got to know Bess, I really started to respect her. I found out the reason she and her family were on the outs was that she'd gotten pregnant when she was 15, and since they were all really Catholic and it was the late 90s in Massachusetts, she didn't feel like she could get an abortion. Also, they wouldn't let her keep the kid and threatened to kick her out if she tried. So she gave up her kid, cried a lot, ran away from home, ended up with her grandmother, and rebuilt her life. I went to college, got a degree, then a master's, started working at an investment firm, and met and married Dave. She was really sad they didn't have a kid, and now that she's 40, she doesn't think she'll ever have one. We started having hangout nights, once or twice a week at most. We talk a little about work, her life, my life, and how everything starts in foster care. We started being gym buddies because she needed an outlet for her emotions over Dave, and I didn't want to let her go get gawked at by meatheads by herself. Honestly, I was starting to worry that we were catching feelings. I would never cheat on Andrew, but if Bess and I were getting too close, I'd have to stop being friends, and that'd suck because I'm kind of difficult. I'm very ADHD, and so I have a lot of walls, and it's rare for me to make real, close friends. For my birthday 2 years ago, Wendy and I decided to do 23andMe and ancestry tests. We've always been curious about where and who we come from. She ended up connecting with some half-siblings and finding out some stuff about herself, but I didn't have anyone come up at the time. I still log on and check from time to time. Anyway, yesterday morning as I was puttering around the apartment, making toast for myself and Andrew and getting ready to go for a run, I decided to do my usual email and website surfing on the tablet. One of my emails was from 23andMe, the usual you have X number of relatives thing. I go in, and reading it I realize these people, cousins, all have the same name as Bess' mom and dad. I hadn't seen them before, and I figured maybe they were recently signed up or whatever. I went for my run, and it was nagging at me. Bess and I have similar looking faces: oval, pointed chin, wide jaw. My eyes are green while hers are blue, and my hair is a different color, although we both dye it, so who knows. We're both really into physical hobbies. And then there's the way her mom acted when we met. When I got home from my run, Bess called me. It's been fairly warm, just shy of 80, so I was toweling off, had my tablet open, and remembered the email. I asked Bess about the people I'd been linked up to, and she affirmed that they were her cousins and asked me why I was asking. It doesn't reflect well on me that it didn't even occur to me why it would have matched me up with Bess' cousins until she asked why I was asking. I was standing there, towel over my shoulders, phone on speaker on the counter, and I was staring at it while the gears in my head began to slowly grind their way to realizing what I was about to say and what it might mean. I stammered my way through an explanation of how I'd signed up for 23andMe years ago and how this morning it sent me an email telling me I was related to the people I just asked her about. She got real quiet and asked me to email her a copy, which I did. She then read it, said she'd call me back, and for the next 2 hours I kind of ambled around the house like a very confused hot dump truck, with Andrew trying to console me. I wasn't upset, but I was completely unsure if I should be or not. About 3 hours later, Bess called me back and asked me if I could come over. I asked if Andrew could come too because frankly I was pretty zoned out and didn't want to be without him, and she said yes. When I got there, Bess had dug out all these boxes of stuff. She had access to adoption records, you can request them en masse, and knew her baby was adopted out to a couple in North Attleboro. I called my mom and she checked up on what she had, and it turned out that I was surrendered to the foster care system when my parents died in a car accident when I was 2. They didn't have any relatives and I was their only kid. We sit there with this for a while. Bess is trying really hard not to cry and I honestly have no idea what to feel. I wasn't even really seriously looking for bio family, you know? It was a goof I did with Wendy. Andrew is nice enough to go get us coffee and donuts at the local Dunkin', and so we're sitting in the kitchen, looking at the box of stuff. She has pictures of a baby. Is it me? I don't know. It looks as much like me as any naturally pale white baby might. We decided we'll get tested. It could take a couple of weeks to get the results back, so until then we can't be sure. Maybe I'm related to her cousins through some other relative somewhere. Maybe it's just a weird coincidence. Part of me is terrified. I don't want my mom and dad to think I wasn't happy with them as my parents, or that I was looking to replace them. They worked really hard for me and Wendy, and I always knew they loved me and I was safe with them. I will not let that change. But Bess and I have become really close, and is it weird to say that I'm also worried that finding out I'm her kid will ruin that? I don't know. We're going in for cheek swabs on Wednesday. She cried a lot and I held her hand, and I'm starting to realize how badly Bess has wanted her daughter back all these years, and I have no idea if I'm up for that. I know from her end she was forced to give her child up and go on without knowing where she was, but from my end, my life was pretty great without her, minus those 2 years in foster care. I do like and respect Bess, but I don't know if I can go from friends to family if that makes sense. Anyway, yeah, I took the day off work. My boss will understand.